Was the recent Hamas terrorist attack on Israel an inside job? In this interview, a former elite IDF combat soldier lays out why he thinks the attack was an inside job.
The invasion of the attack, the IDF says the attack began at 7:15 a.m. But however, surveillance footage from the kibbutzim show that the attackers were there as early as 5:55 a.m., which is strange that they would lie about the time of the attack. And once the attack was announced, the government put a media blackout for an hour and a half, meaning the Israeli media was not allowed to report on the attack while it was happening an hour and a half. Now just imagine if you're at home in one of these kibbutzim and you get a live tape. They can tell you live there's an attack going on right now in Gaza. Think of how many people could have seen that report and taken the proper precautions. But the government wouldn't let them report that.
And joining us from Israel is David Sidman. David, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for joining us.
We're all watching from the outside in and just shaking our heads. So the floor is absolutely yours to share whatever you'd like to share with us.
Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your background? I can detect an American accent.
Yeah, so I'm from America, and let me get the better lighting in here one second. I hope this is better. I'm originally from Boston. I made Aliyah to Israel. I joined the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces. I served in a specialized unit. I worked as a staff journalist for Israel 365, and now I'm on to other things, and I'm a citizen journalist in my spare time. I'm probably the only English-speaking citizen journalist in all of Israel, as far as I know. Yeah.
Wow. You've citizen journalists seem to be the democracy's natural immunity, since the mainstream journalists have failed us all, and so I think you're a gift.
Yeah, thanks. I actually still have my press pass from when I was in a legacy journalist. So I kind of use that to get out of sticky situations, and it's useful. But I answer to nobody except God when I do my reporting.
Do you live near the Gaza border?
Actually, not really. I live over an hour away. My area, for now, is quiet, but there are signs that a similar invasion, they're going to attempt a similar invasion in Judea and Samaria, where I live. So we're all kind of on edge. I've been doing patrols to help out.
When you say you do patrols, can you explain what that means to a country that doesn't have your scenario?
Yeah, it's pretty boring. It's just kind of observing any sort of valley between Jewish Israeli villages and Arab villages where the invaders might come from. Basically like watchdogs, waiting for something to happen and reacting if it does. For now, it's been relatively quiet, but that can all change at the drop of a dime.
And are you seething with anger after what's happened Are you seething with anger or baffled, or what are you feeling being there?
I mean, it's both. It's definitely we're all seething with anger. I mean, anyone who understands the veracity of what happened in Israel, it's hard not to seethe with anger. That we've been taught that Israel is, for the Jewish people, supposedly this safe haven, so that something like what happened in the Holocaust can't happen again. And here it happened again. So a lot of people are very shaken to their core. They're trying to make sense of all this. I'm angry at the terrorists, but I'm also angry at the government who allowed this to happen. And a lot of us are asking questions and trying to figure out, how this could have possibly happened. And we're not getting any answers. And it doesn't seem like the government has any intention of seeking any sort of revenge attack, which is something that we're all hoping for, or punishing Hamas in any truly significant way.
We have the same questions here. If we can start with them, we know from we watch it on Twitter and Instagram, and friends that are over, people have friends over there, that the border was so secure. You know, they say that a bird couldn't shit on the on a guardrail without a helicopter coming in to check it out. And now these guys get across. I don't understand how that's possible.
Yeah, I can verify that. I served on the Gaza border, and what you're saying is absolutely true. And so, I've done a lot of, I don't know if you've seen my videos, but I've done a lot of research and asked a lot of people and tried to kind of gauge some of my military connections. And the only thing that and I would say most Israelis on the ground feel was that there was some sort of betrayal in the ranks, that this was a false flag operation. And as things develop, my fears being more and more confirmed that this was indeed a false flag operation, and that the Israeli military at the highest ranks were indeed complicit.
If I can play devil's advocate, there's theories going around, for example, yes, the technology on the border was it was highly sophisticated. The theory is there was a cyber attack. That's one. The other one is they were overwhelmed by thousands of Hamas terrorists, and the IDF that was stationed there, the soldiers, couldn't handle them. It was a surprise attack. How would you respond to that?
Sure. So if it was a cyber attack, why did the army admit that the surveillance center spotted the terrorists? There's actually video footage of not only the surveillance command spotting the invasion, but even reacting to it. This was published a few days ago. I don't think the Israeli army realized what they just did. They just destroyed that entire narrative. I can send you the link to the video where the IDF is actually bragging about the surveillance operators who I guess, I don't know where the narrative came from, that there was a hack. But if it came from the IDF, then they just contradicted themselves. There's at least two pieces of evidence that I can show you, showing that those in the command control center observed and reported this attack. Now to your second question, okay, it doesn't make sense that an army with tanks that's situated on the border with heavy artillery, tanks, machine guns in positions that they've literally mapped out in case of such a scenario, was overrun by a bunch of guys on pickup trucks. And if they were, which is about as improbable as getting struck by lightning twice in the same hour, then why not call for air support? Why was not one attack helicopter activated? Where is this mighty Israeli Air Force? Where was everybody? There's no answers.
Well, my next question is. Sorry, Leon. That was my next question.
Yeah.
Too.
I was just going to ask how long did it take the Army and the Air Force to respond?
There was a limited response from the Army, but not nearly significant enough for the magnitude of the invasion. The truth is that the Hamas terrorists had about 7 hours to enter Israel, wreak havoc, kill, slaughter. They had thermo bombers, which are actual, they're like grenades that incinerate. You can incinerate someone in a closed space up to 3,000 degrees. And they left with hostages virtually uncontested. And this was a 7-hour ordeal.
I noticed that they took some of the hostages back to Gaza on what appeared to be golf buggies. I've never played golf before, but how fast does a golf buggy go?
I don't know. Yeah,
40
I didn't
kilometers
see.
an
I didn't
hour
actually. I
maximum,
saw them
maybe?
on like these. I saw them do that on these mopeds. I didn't see the golf buggy, but I believe you. I mean,
The
it's.
other thing we heard, actually from Leon, is that the settlements that were attacked were disarmed last year by the government. Is that correct, or is that not
Yes,
true?
that's something that I brought to light. That in 2020, I mean, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of pieces of evidence that led me to my conclusions, and I've spoken
Yeah,
to
I'm.
fellow military experts, and I present it to them, and I say, "How do you explain this?" And they say they have no answer, and they a lot of them still refuse to believe that this was an act of treason, but they have no good counter argument. In 2020, the army removed the weapons of the security teams at those villages, leaving them basically unarmed. And the security teams pleaded with the army. They said, "Listen, we're getting warnings of this invasion." And the army was having none of it. They said, "No, we're entering a period of calm." That's actually what they said. And that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg of strange of the timeline leading up to this event.
The reason I'm asking you these questions is try to be a devil's advocate to go, look, we just want to be open here, don't make any outrageous claims, but these are questions we have to ask. The other question,
I mean, I've been playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, I applaud you. I
this
applaud you for what you're doing.
Looked at it from every possible angle.
The other question is, with the amount of rockets they're firing, how could Mossad or the CIA not be aware of that, or from the weapons coming in from Afghanistan? I mean, surely they have spies. They get wind of it.
I would say regarding the attack, they definitely knew. You could kind of say, well, they were getting weapons from Afghanistan, and they need those weapons because they have to police their own people. I mean, I don't buy it, and I don't think I don't think they themselves buy it. But this is Israel is the most technologically advanced surveillance state. I think our number one export in terms is tech, and of that tech, the most sought after is our surveillance technology. To think that, and the Shabak, who is the Israeli intelligence agency, were, I think, the first to contact trace during the whole COVID thing, and they knew that someone sneezed in some toy store 5 weeks ago, and based on that, to assume that they didn't know that these Hamas terrorists were training for this event for a year already, and above that, the Egyptian president told Netanyahu that this was taking place. Netanyahu denies it, but a Republican congressman from Texas, Mike McCall, actually confirmed this. And obviously, I believe Mike McCall because he has much less to lose by lying than Netanyahu does.
The other question, the last question I have, just is they flew in those gyrocopters. Now, I've never flown in a gyrocopter, and I'm pretty
I
sure.
Didn't know. Thanks for telling me. I never know what those things are called. I've been calling them.
And I'm pretty sure that if I was going to invade a country, I'd probably say, "Can I have a lesson first?" Because I'm either going to run into you two and get all tangled up, or this. So they would have to train with those, and they would have to train somewhere, and that would be highly visible and concerning.
Yeah, but even put that aside for a second. When you see, 100 gyrocopters flying into your territory, alert the Air Force. These are things. It's not like a stealth bomber that flew under the radar.
No, and you've got a jet fighter that could probably get there, or Apache, the attack helicopters. You think they could get there very quickly, quicker than 6 hours?
Yeah, that's an understatement.
I mean, we're in Australia, and say from Perth to Melbourne is 3,600 kilometers. It takes 4 hours in a fully laden passenger jet. So a fighter plane could probably do it in an hour or two. So that doesn't make any sense.
I could do it in 15 minutes at the most.
Yeah.
Let me
they're all my
ask you.
questions. I'm not there. We're only watching what we see on the different, mainly citizen journalists, and these are just the questions that just seem baffling, and the only conclusion you can make from them is exactly what you're saying, and so many others.
Well, if I can just add that Israel isn't there. Israel unfortunately has a sordid history of these types of either false flag or inside job operations. It started with the Altalena, which was a ship take by Jewish Israelis intended to arm the Irgun, which was David Ben Gurion's establishment of was the IDF, and this was when Israel was about to fight for its independence. David Ben Gurion and the Irgun ordered the ship.
Haganah, sorry, David.
Sorry, Haganah. Ordered the ship to be destroyed. On that ship was actually future Prime Minister Menachem Begin, and they were shooting in the water, which is a war crime. Almost 20 Jewish Israelis were killed and hundreds were arrested. Their crime was just to help arm the IDF win the war against 7 Arab armies. And if you fast forward in 1973, the Yom Kippur War, there was a secret deal between then Defense Minister Moshe Dayan and Henry Kissinger, who was the Secretary of State of the United States. And Henry Kissinger wanted to make Egypt a patron state of the U.S. and not of the USSR. So what happened was he convinced Moshe Dayan to allow Egypt to have a partial win against Israel to give them a little bit of pride, and they would use that victory as a pretense to switch allegiances from the USSR to the United States. And so basically the defense minister in 1973 of Israel gave stand down orders to the soldiers as the Egyptian legions were invading via the Suez Canal, via the Suez. So Israel, it's not, these types of false flags and inside jobs, unfortunately, are nothing new to Israel.
There was a question just asked by someone. I can't see where it went.
How much danger are you putting yourself in?
Yeah, I'll bring it up. How much danger are you putting yourself in?
Funny you should ask. Funny you should ask. Apparently, there's an emergency law going into effect now that says that anyone who says anything on social media that lowers the morale of the military, it can be punishable even by prison. So until that law is passed, I hope it isn't, I could be put in prison for saying what I'm saying. And the law stipulates people who blame the government for the attack. Now, ironically, what's really lowering the morale of the IDF is Israel's weak response to this mini Holocaust that just took place in southern Israel. You know, the fact that Hamas is still in Gaza is still able to shoot rockets at Israel. Well, how hard could our response be if they're still capable of shooting rockets at us? And, you know, that's the type of thing that really lowers the morale of the soldiers, not people like me. In fact, if you consider the alternative, let's say I'm wrong. The alternative is that the Israeli army is so incompetent that they can't even handle a couple of pickup trucks and what do you call them? Gyro planes?
Gyrocopters.
Gyrocopters.
I think that's what they were. That's what they look like, because it's a propeller with you know,
gyrocopters.
You need to be trained to use those. You just can't. It's not like you can go to a holiday somewhere and get in one and take off. You know.
Oh, yeah, I have no idea, but I take your word for it.
Yeah. Yeah, and also you need an airport to take off from. You know, you need something to take off from. That would be visually seen as well. We're just asking basic, critically thinking, practical questions here. But I know the government doesn't want us to say it's them. But if, say, theoretically they were behind it, what's the motivation to go this far?
So
what's the end game
of Israel? You're saying?
Yeah, or whoever's behind it. Yeah.
Okay. So there is a theory that I've examined a couple of theories. The one that seems most plausible is that America needs a war. First of all, they're losing a lot of support over the Ukraine war, and they need another war to distract everyone from the fact that the country is about to be the world reserve currency is about to be de-dollarized, and so they need a war against a country that they think the vast majority of Americans don't like. So Iran is a good target. So what I think may have happened is that, okay, let me back up.
I just want to say, someone got up and said the paragliders.
You got fact checked,
That's what I thought they
a
were.
few people.
Yeah, sorry guys. I've never
I
flown
looked
them
it up
either.
as
But even
well.
a
You were wrong,
paraglider,
Michael.
even a paraglider, I think would take some.
Yeah,
some
you definitely
training,
need training.
you know what
It's
I mean?
very dangerous
Yeah.
without
Yeah.
training.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure the Israeli Air Force is capable of handling paragliders. I don't know, but
Or has the surveillance capability to see Hamas flying around on training missions over
In
their own
broad
country
daylight.
and going, "What's that?"
yeah.
It's not like you can fly around your living room. Anyway,
Clear
so
skies.
So
Go
so
ahead. Sorry,
basically,
David.
I'm gonna turn this off. Someone's trying to call. Okay, let's back up a little bit. I don't know if you've been following, but there's been a lot of protests against judicial reform that Netanyahu wanted to initiate. For the past few months, there's been major protests of anti-judicial reform. People who basically want to take Netanyahu down because they think that he's killing the judicial branch of the Israeli government. The person behind these protests is Ehud Barak. Ehud Barak, I don't know if you know anything about him. He was the prime minister and defense minister of Israel. He's actually one of Jeffrey Epstein's good buddies. He's been photographed sneaking into Jeffrey Epstein's mansion in New York. And he's obsessed with bringing down Netanyahu. And he's even said publicly that he believes there will be blood in the streets. Blood in the Yarkon River is actually what he said. It's a river that runs through Tel Aviv. Obviously, as a former defense minister and prime minister, he has a lot of connections in the Israeli army. Now, if America wants a war in Israel and they need a false flag attack to go over to Israel to wage a war, then I think the Democrats' best contact guy would probably be Ehud Barak. Now, if you look at the Israeli government, it's a parliamentary system. In the coalition, there was only one person who voted against the judicial reform, against Netanyahu's judicial reform bill, and that was the defense minister, Yoav Gallant. Now, it's kind of a well-known thing that Israel's a very military culture. Everyone goes to the military. It's almost like sports in Israel. Like what unit were you in? Oh, they're bad. There's a lot of kind of like and there's a big old boys club in the Israeli military, specifically the Air Force. The Air Force is known to be more left-wing, more anti-Netanyahu. And during the judicial protests, there were even calls to refuse to sign up for reserve duty, which is kind of like it's sacrosanct in Israel. Reserve duty is a big deal. And it mainly came from the Air Force and the intelligence. The Air Force and the intelligence have kind of a reputation of being very anti-Netanyahu, more to the left. So there's obviously an intelligence breach, and the Air Force was nowhere to be seen during this entire event, during this entire attack. And so if I were to kind of put the puzzle pieces together, I would say America needs a war. They think it'll stimulate their economy. They need to distract everyone from the fact that the country's on the brink of collapse. I think they tried the COVID thing again, but I think people wised up to it. So now, they need a war that they think the average American will get behind. I think most Americans don't like Iran. They've been, the rhetoric has really been anti-Iran in this entire conflict. And now America is saying that they're going to send over aid, which is kind of strange because I don't think Israel's, mighty military needs American aid against an army of pickup trucks and hang gliders. So there's something very fishy there. They even want to send over an aircraft carrier to help us with Hezbollah, even though a real war hasn't even broken out between us and Hezbollah. Yeah, there's tensions on the borders, but there's always been tensions on the borders. So there's a lot of very strange things where America's involved. The Air Force and the intelligence was demonstrably absent during the invasion last week, and a lot of these. If you look at the big picture, that kind of seems to be where it points. And by the way, El Barak, was caught kind of like leaving Israel during the attack. He was flying, which is he was caught in an airport buying stuff from duty free, which is kind of strange it's kind of strange behavior for someone of that stature to be doing when Israel was just devastated. He was just going shopping in duty free like nothing happened. It's not like evidence towards anything, but it definitely says a lot about where his head is and where everyone else in Israel's head is at.
Mm-hmm. Where the world is at. The world is, I'm telling you, the world is weeping watching for both sides. There's and we don't know the truth anymore. There's so many. There's an Indian woman who is visually fact checking a lot of the mainstream's videos and saying, no, that's from a 2011 thing. So, in any conflict, the first casualty is truth.
Yeah,
but can I go back in time? How long have you been in Israel?
Since 1999. And I left for 4 years and I came back in 2006.
Okay. How do you, from someone that hasn't grown up surrounded by people who hate them enough to kill them, how do you explain the hate and why the hate just will not be extinguished? It doesn't matter how much blood.
Yeah, I mean, they're taught from a very young age that Israel stole their land, which isn't true. And they're taught it's a very violent culture. They see those who are the highest honor is to be killed in the war, not to fight in the war, but to actually be killed in the war in the Palestinian communities. So yeah, and it's interesting because there's a lot of very interesting theories about the Palestinians. Well, first of all, the Palestinians in Gaza have a lot more in common culturally with the Arabs of Egypt than they do with the Palestinians of the West Bank. And the Palestinians of the West Bank have a lot more culturally in common with the Arabs of Syria, Jordan, and Iraq than they do with the Palestinians in Gaza. So there isn't really the whole idea of the Palestinian people was created as based on the premise that this land was stolen by Israel. They don't really have any sort of cultural connectivity. It's the entire Palestinian idea and nation. The word Palestine is actually a Roman term that was, they have no connection to Rome. Obviously, they're Arab Muslims, and its entire premise is that Israeli Jews are thieves and they have to be either driven out or killed.
It's been happening my whole life. I'm 57 years old. I can't remember a time when you weren't hearing of wars or battles or deaths from there. That's why I played when I first played. There was a small snippet of Gandhi saying an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. It's amazing how much death can happen and still it doesn't stop. I watched the videos. I know everyone's going on about, Israel is bombing Palestine and you're watching, and that's horrendous too. But if you watch the videos of the terrorists walking around these houses, just randomly shooting people they don't know, just obliterating people, it's hard not to hate. That's why I said you're taught to hate. It's hard not to get enraged. And the video of that young girl with a broken body, with them sitting on top of her like a sack of potatoes, it's hard not to want them dead, And and then you wonder, is there powers that be that it's like the red ants, black ants scenario, where they try to get pawns to fight each other, so they're not actually dealing with the person that's actually creating the war. So, yeah.
And by the way, Janet Yellen, who's the Secretary Treasury of the U.S., just said that the U.S. can afford 2 wars, meaning Israel and the Ukraine. What makes you think that?
Ukraine is
a crazy thing to say. That to me says that the U.S. has a serious vested interest in this war, and it strengthens my belief that they were behind this, and obviously in collaboration with Israel and Hamas.
I mean, Ukraine, to be honest, Ukraine is like a Netflix show that had great promise, but everybody stopped watching it.
They got spoiled.
We need that. The last few years in Australia, we've had the great fires, then the great floods, then COVID, and then we moved to Ukraine. And it was like a TV show where, okay, we need a new season now. You know what I mean? Everyone's vaccinated. Everyone's bored. What's next? Okay, let's have a war in Ukraine. Okay, that's not failing. Okay, suddenly, here we go. We're starting the year off with lots of death, lots of murder. Get angry, get fired up, pick a side. Here we go.
Well,
all I can hear is Kurt Cobain going, entertain us. That's all I can hear. You know what I mean? I'm realizing this prophetic song. That's what it's like. We're sitting back on these big TVs. They're bigger than the house sometimes. You're just sitting there watching them being force-fed, just like that 1984 thing we started off with. You're just being taught to hate, taught to this, and,
Yeah. Something else I wanted to mention is that there's kind of a culture of the COVID lockdowns right now because people are kind of afraid to go anywhere. Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, they're like ghost towns. And I just found out from a neighbor of mine who was having a wedding, they're only allowing 50 people in a closed space. That sounds awfully familiar, doesn't it? Why would they? Yeah. It's almost like they're trying to recreate the lockdowns, just instead of a virus, they're using war.
Yeah. I mean, the whole world was stunned how quickly Israel complied to the lockdowns and the vaccinations. And we were interviewing Israeli citizens who were telling us about, this is a year or so ago, about the amount of adverse reactions you were having there and sudden deaths, and that people weren't taking the boosters. And that's happening around the world now. But it was crazy to see it.
Yeah, I was one of the refusers, and there's just, the pressure was like insane here. I got kicked off my basketball team because I refused to get vaccinated. It was a very people who were your friends suddenly wouldn't invite you over. There was a lot of bullying. I wonder if the eagerness of Israel to comply with this experiment has anything to do with the ease in which Biden selected Israel to launch World War III from. I don't know. It's just a theory, but you never know.
No, I don't know. This is we're all guessing. And then people saying, they're actually saying pick a side. Even on here now, they're probably doing it in the comments. I haven't seen, but my allegiance lies with the pawns on both sides. The Palestinians who don't want to actually kill anyone, they just want to get on with their lives and raise their children. The same with the Jewish, the ordinary people that just want to. I watched when they were breaking into some house and they couldn't find anybody, but the house could have been any Australian house. A bit of mess here, there's an iPad open, This is just an everyday suburban house where someone's, thinking, oh, I better tidy up. I haven't got round to it. And then suddenly there's armed men in there looking to kill them for who knows what reason, It's utterly insane. And the thing that gets me the most is when I hear God is great over, like there was over the body of that broken girl, but you see them over dead bodies. And I'm thinking, it's not an anti-Muslim thing. It's just, I'm not sure how God works, but if there is a creator, I can't believe the creator would sit there applauding as one creation destroys another one pointlessly. I don't believe it. I believe he'd
Yeah, I
look
don't think
away
he's
and
not.
go, okay, I'm
Yeah.
going to another planet because this is a failed experiment. Tried my best, but the bonkers. I just can't believe he would be applauding. Yes, I'll kill that one too. I don't buy it.
He's not. He's
I
not.
just don't buy it.
And what's
No.
also tragic is that, you think if everyone's so worried about a genocide of the people of Gaza, you'd think that a country like Egypt would open its borders for refugees, or any Arab country for that matter. But they're not. It's almost as if the Arab countries want them there to propagate some sick victimhood narrative at the expense of their own lives. Just to make Israel look like the bad guys, they're willing to sacrifice, almost 1 million civilians in Gaza.
Just pawns.
Where's the,
And the other thing,
if Egypt's this patron state of America, why isn't America pressuring Egypt to take in refugees? They could, if America made one phone call to Egypt, Egypt would open its borders to Gaza, its Gaza border, and allowing everyone who wanted to escape.
well, you've been on the wall, you said, and you've been, you go on these, what do you call them, patrols.
Patrols, yeah.
So I take it you're armed when you do that,
Yeah.
and so you're in this conflict where you're armed. When I'm watching these killings that we're seeing, and people say, oh, these are behind it, or they come up with all the theories of who's behind it. But surely, if you're a man and you've got the gun in your hand with the trigger, there's no one behind you. You're the one that decides whether you pull that trigger. The power then is with you. You decide whether you're going to become someone who took someone's life just by pulling your finger, or decided mercifully not to. And it's, ultimately the power comes down with this. And when I watch these killings going round, I'm thinking, what? This person has a mother. This person had dreams. This person had possibilities. And there's other humans that aren't born that could have stemmed from this person, like a tree growing limbs. There's so much you're wiping out, and yet you're snuffing them out like it's some duck at a target shooting range. I just don't understand the hate. I just can't process the hate. I apologize. I know over there you must be so angry. It must be, but I struggle.
Well, yeah, it's a very cruel education they get from a very young age. And, I just wanted, to your point, I just, kind of disagree with you and a lot of people about the civilians. I think it's important to understand that the civilians in Gaza raised these monsters. They educated them, they nurtured them, and they sent them off and welcomed them back when they did what they did. I think, in Germany, when the U.S. fought against the Nazis and they bombed Dresden, it was a war against the people. It wasn't just a war against the soldiers themselves, because the U.S. understood that the people at the home front are the tailwinds of the soldiers for their victory. So I think, as an Israeli, we kind of have a different perspective on how we view the average civilian in Gaza. I think in general it's very easy to say, well, all civilians are innocent, but I think it's just a little more complicated than that.
Do you think?
I think if you pick up a gun, or if you raise your children to hate, I think it's fair to say that you're far from being an innocent civilian.
Right. So the mother of these, the father of the guy who raped mothers in front of their children last week, in my opinion, is culpable. I have no mercy for him.
No.
And if his death was reported in the mainstream news, they would say Israel kills innocent civilian. Was he innocent? It's not so simple. Do you guys want to hear?
I woke up this morning with a strange sense, that there was a dawn ahead of us somewhere, but I couldn't see it. Maybe I'm delusional because my heart can see further than my eyes. But in moments like these, when you're telling us truths that we need to hear, that dawn seems a long way off. Yeah, go ahead with whatever you're going to say.
I kind of compiled a list of events that point to a false flag attack, if you want, and they're all backed up by links. Would you want me to run through them real quick?
Yeah, no problem. We have another 20 minutes and another show takes over. Go ahead.
Sure. So as you know, real quick. So as you know, in 2020, security teams from the Gaza border had their guns confiscated by the government. By the way, if you want links for any of these things, I'm happy to provide them. And just last month in September, there's the Jewish holidays where there's a lot of festivities and events. Gaza community heads were warned of an attack on the Jewish holidays. And they asked the army if they should cancel the festivals. And the army discouraged the cancellation, saying that the border tension is calming. Now imagine if the army listened to the people of the Gaza border communities, that whole rave party could have been canceled. But it wasn't, because the army themselves, the military, reassured them not to.
Can I ask you, there was a rumor going around that the rave was moved at the last minute to a new location closer to the border. Is that true?
I don't know. I'm not sure. It's possible. I actually have no information on that. But I'll be happy to look into that if you want. Now, this is something that I found the most damning. Several weeks before the attack, Israeli surveillance balloons were mysteriously shut down. This is reported in Haaretz. Now, the official story is that there was a technical malfunction in 3 of the Israeli surveillance balloons that were positioned to surveil the Gaza border. If 3 of them were these are pretty important pieces of equipment. If 3 of them simultaneously suffered a technical malfunction, wouldn't you maybe replace it with something else or try to fix it right away? I mean, we're talking about weeks before the attack, and they were never replaced. IDF soldiers, the more lower ranked soldiers, the grunts, reported that there were signs of the attack the night before the attack, and those calls were ignored by the IDF. And of course, a contradiction to the official narrative that there was some kind of cyber attack and the surveillance operators weren't able to identify the invasion has been completely disproven with video evidence. And there's one other strange thing that's been kind of viral. Oh, one more thing. The invasion of the attack, the IDF says the attack began at 7:15 a.m. But however, surveillance footage from the kibbutzim show that the attackers were there as early as 5:55 a.m., which is strange that they would lie about the time of the attack. And once the attack was announced, the government put a media blackout for an hour and a half, meaning the Israeli media was not allowed to report on the attack while it was happening an hour and a half. Now, just imagine if you're at home in one of these kibbutzim and you get a live media update. They can tell you live, there's an attack going on right now in Gaza. Think of how many people could have seen that report and taken the proper precautions, but the government wouldn't let them report that.
A kibbutz is a village, just for the benefit of our audience. I just don't want them to get lost.
Villages that were attacked. If they were watching the news, they could have reacted, but the government wouldn't let them report what was happening in real time.
Because Leon, you told me that people were going Facebook Live from their houses, showing it happening in the
That's what it
settlements. Is that
appeared to
correct?
me. So maybe David can comment on that, but I saw what appeared to be
Well, I
like
don't know,
Facebook
but I'm
live
saying, why would
streams.
the government stop the media from
What you said doesn't make any sense,
in a
David. I
in a
just
supposedly
can't see.
democratic country, in a supposedly, where there's supposed to be free press, and when we need the press the most, when our borders are being invaded, the press isn't
You'd want
allowed
the
to
alarm to be
alert the
out.
citizens.
You'd want the alarm to be out everywhere. We're under attack. That's like it's the same with the fire alarm, or the same with anything. An earthquake alarm. This is just like here.
Yeah, if Australia was being invaded by, I don't know, China, wouldn't you want your free press to be reporting on it as it happened?
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. It gives you time to prepare. But the government
It's
wouldn't let
strange.
them.
No matter how much you turn it over, nothing. The only thing that makes sense is that this is staged or allowed to happen. Nothing else makes sense.
Virtually, it's so improbable that it could have just been a series of incompetence, especially as someone
And
who served.
David, you're not alone. I hear people here in Australia, everybody's going, nah, stinks. Everybody. People
Yeah,
who won't watch this show, who just watching mainstream news, watching that feed, even they're going, doesn't make sense.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Yeah.
doesn't. I mean, like I said at the beginning, the same. I'm seething at Gaza, but at the same time, I'm also seething at our government. I can't say it's the equal amount of anger, but and I feel bad for my friends on the front line who are going to go into Gaza under taking commands from the same military that set the stage for this to happen. That invited these people in.
Oh, yeah. Look, even that last comment, they said even satellites would have picked it up,
Yeah, 300,000 Israeli reservists are now amassed on the Gaza border, and they're all going to be going in, which seems like a lot of fighters for a population of only a million. Of that million, maybe they have, I don't know, 20,000 able-bodied fighters. It seems like a bit of overkill, and these people are going to be taking orders from the same people that, like I said, organized this attack. Doesn't give you a lot of faith. People here just don't feel safe. How can you feel safe after something like that happened? Either way, whether it was a false flag or whether the IDF is really that pathetically incompetent, either way, you don't feel safe here. Because if Israel can't defend the Gaza border, what can they defend? What can they protect?
I'm so sorry, man. It's such a nightmare. It's
Thank
such
you.
a nightmare. Do you have anything you want to say, Leon?
I mean, in theory,
And
Israel
admire your
also.
bravery. Sorry.
Yeah, I second that. But in theory, I mean, my understanding is Israel also has EMF technology. They pioneered it in crowd dispersals. They could have repelled that attack without even firing a single bullet.
Yeah, there's so many things that could have been done that mysteriously weren't. And it's all very convenient that America, jumped on it like white on rice.
Mm. Mm.
So I think, we could be looking at Gog and Magog or World War III for the secular folk out there.
Well, that's what we're talking about Ukraine. It's like they tried to kickstart World War III in Ukraine.
Yeah,
And it hasn't happened,
and since Iran is allied with Russia, this could be the real. I think this will be the real catalyst that kickstarts the next world war that America wants so badly.
Nothing more dangerous than a dying superpower.
That's it. Yeah, very true.
Mm.
So get ready for crazy days ahead.
Yeah. It's crazy, for all of this. I mean, I love America. I see America as not now, but the America was
Yeah,
something great, a
Used to
beacon
represent
of
freedom.
hope for the world. Yeah, beacon of liberty and freedom and hope, and a place that basically urged you to try fulfill your dreams.
Yeah,
Now,
it's it's a new world, and it's people
well,
are telling me that. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, please stay in touch with Leon and myself if you want to come back on, or even if and if you want to share your videos, I'm quite happy to allow you to use the page to share your videos to our audience. I mean, you'd probably get taken down, but who cares? The truth has to
Thank
come
you.
out. Yeah, it has to come out. We have to have the truth. Yeah. Or
Yeah,
it's worth.
there's
Yeah.
it's just so
Yeah.
I just scroll through Twitter, and the amount of things I can see, and I'm like, wait, that's not true. That's not true. That's a lie. That's a lie. Like there's bad information coming from both sides. Hamas is notorious for releasing bad information, and Israel is notorious for censoring information. So I don't know. It's very hard to decipher. It's like it's a lot of sweat to decipher what's real and fake nowadays.
Well, man, I hate to be unvaccinated in that country. I mean, we're unvaccinated in this country, but to be unvaccinated in that country and to be a citizen journalist, and your balls must be so big, amazing you don't trip over them. Okay, seriously, absolutely seriously, man. Huge warrior of God. I wish you the best, and if you, we'd love to get you back on and do updates, even if it's just to disperse myths. Like if you see things, these aren't true, and I mean they'll cancel us eventually, of course, but it would be just good to have some little sort of sliver of light to go, and this is what I've seen in myself. This is my version of the truth. This is what I'm watching, rather than all the bullshit we're going to be fed now. Yeah.
Amen.
Take care.
Thank you so much for coming on, David. It was a pleasure having you on.
Sure thing.
Yeah. Have you got his email, Leon?
We're in touch via Facebook. So I came across David's page a few days ago. So I couldn't stop watching your videos. They're very informative.
Yeah, I'm going to be. I live on the road, traveling town, interviewing people, so I haven't had a chance. I'm going to watch them now. But if you could just put your email in the private chat, then we'll link up, and so we'll be able to do this again. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it'll be fun.
And I'll say you to take care, but I don't think that's going to protect you.
You can always say take care.
The God watches over the land of Israel and the people of Israel. The Shekhinah is over.
Amen. Amen.
Is always there.
Amen. Yes. All right. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Yep. So yeah, just get your email to or just send it through to Leon. Oh, I've got it here. Yep.
Oh wait, no, I spelled it wrong. All right, let me send it again. All right, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, send it to Leon. You take care. Thank you so much. Oh, that it?
Okay, the second one. All right. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Leon.
Thank you.
How's that make you feel before we go? We've got a few minutes before the next show. How's that make you feel?
Look, it's hard to process all of that. It's to take in. It's quite heavy. But as I said towards the end,
how long before they kick this off Facebook? How long do you think? A day? An hour? Are we off?
You want to place bets? Let's place bets. Let's get the audience to place bets.
Comments. Place the bets. How long? How long before this is gone? Yeah. It's insane, Leon. It's insane. There's so much greater benefits to all of us, to the majority of us, to love each other, to get on, to be friends, to respect each other, to be kind. So many more
Absolutely.
long-term benefits.
There are no
And
winners
we
in
just
this. No one
we just
wins
go
in
out
a
and do
conflict
this.
like this.
No, there are no winners. No winners at all. All right, I might go out with what I started with.
Thank you, Michael.
And,
Thank you, everyone.
No worries. Take care, Leon.
Take care. All the best.